On the home front this week. We are really excited to have you all with us again. As we were getting close to closing out our webinar series for the last 8 weeks, we wanted to make sure that we brought on a subject that is near and dear to our hearts and is going to become an ongoing discussion, I believe, very prevalently in the next year, months to year, because there are a lot of things that are going on. We have Harvard that is doing a conference about how homeschooling is a detriment. And when you read the article that this professor wrote, I don't know why anybody reading that article would not go, oh my gosh, maybe I should be homeschooling, because the things that she said she had a problem with were absurd. And we have the schools that are bringing school into home. This is about regulating the home. This is about regulating parents in the home, telling them what they can and can't do with their children. This is about regulating the teachers in the classroom, turning them into nothing but robots monitoring kids who are on computers. If you thought that Common Core was a bad beast, you haven't seen anything yet. And so I wanted to take an opportunity to bring on two incredible women who have been directly impacted by the educational system and have become warriors in the fight for our children and the future of our children, families, and country because of their experiences. So our first guest today is Rebecca Friedrichs. Rebecca Friedrichs is a lifelong teacher. She's been teaching elementary school for several decades. And she became extremely concerned very early on in her career with how the teachers' unions were really controlling the classrooms, but also forcing them to pay dues and then taking that money to pay for things that most of the teachers didn't agree with. So that led her all the way to the Supreme Court and writing an awesome book called Standing Up to Goliath, telling her story and the stories of moms across the country. And she has a website called For Kids and Country, and I highly recommend you check out all of those things. Rebecca Friedrichs, welcome to On the Homefront.
Thank you for having me, Kimberly and Moms for America. It's great to be here.
So one of the things, I just want to jump in right away and talk about the first experience you had when you became a teacher and when you started to realize what was going on with the teachers unions, what the dues were going to, and where you went from there.
Well, sure. Actually, the first experience I had was when I was a student teacher. I was 22 years old. This was in 1987, dating myself. But
you look great.
Bless you. I was learning from this remarkable teacher. Okay, there are a ton of amazing teachers out there doing incredible things inside of an impossible system. So this teacher was training me to do what's right, to teach children well, to love them. Her students left first grade above grade level. I mean, it was just amazing. But next door was this woman who was literally, in my opinion, abusing the kids. She would grab them and yank them and get them in her face and scream at them. And this was, like dragging them over. And this was just to get them in line after recess. And I would witness this every single day. So I asked my master teacher, I'm learning about reporting child abuse, and I think I see some, and it's the teacher next door. What do we do? She sat me down, and she just said, Rebecca, today's the day you learn about teachers unions. And she explained to me that it was the teachers unions that protect these sorts of teachers and make it almost impossible for school districts to rid themselves of these abusive teachers. So that is what set me on a path of, I don't want to be a part of an organization that uses my money to defend a child abuser or to create a culture on campus that would allow that kind of behavior. Children should be loved. Teachers should be kind. Teachers should be excellent. We should be delivering outstanding education to these kids. And we would be, and things would be going well if it weren't for teachers unions. So I found out when I signed my first contract, like 6 months later, I said, I don't want to be a part of the union. And they said, well, you don't have a choice. You don't have to join and be a member, but you have to pay fees. And the difference between membership and fees was like $50 a year. Unbelievable. And they controlled everything about my job. They controlled our contract. They literally control everything. You want to know why there's problems in the schools? It's the unions. And sadly, there are millions of teachers out there who have no idea that they are funding an organization that's actually causing the demise of their profession, the demise of their classroom. So it's really important. The reason I wrote that book, it's called Standing Up to Goliath, is to share the testimonies of real teachers and loving parents and kids to show you, my goodness, these unions are a problem and we need to get them out of our schools.
So you get to the point where you realize it's a problem, and then you want to do something about it. So you enter the fray and start asking questions that people don't want to hear. They don't want the questions, and you didn't like the answers. Yeah. So that led you to a fight that you did not expect to fight. So where did you go when you went up against the unions?
Yeah, it's interesting. I would still be in the classroom right now, loving on little kids and educating them well, if it wasn't for the teachers' unions causing this fight. So as a teacher, I noticed that these unions were continually, during our mandatory staff meetings, they come in, tell us that we had to destroy school choice. School choice was bad, they kept telling us, because it was going to destroy our jobs. Oh, and they told us that kids in charter schools and kids in private schools and kids in home schools, they're not being educated well, and they're being abused, and all these lies. And they tug on the heartstrings of teachers, and a lot of teachers fall for this stuff because they want the kids protected. So I noticed that no matter what I believed, the union was on the opposite side of it. Even my Judeo-Christian virtues, they're destroying them and removing them. So I just started speaking out. Kimberly, I actually became a union leader. For 3 years, I sat on the executive board of my local union because all of the teachers that worked with me in my district agreed with me. They didn't think kids should be harmed. They didn't think abusive teachers should be protected. They wanted school choice for their kids. And so I thought, we can change things from the inside. Oh, what was I thinking? I get there, I serve, I start speaking out, and here's what I noticed. Even teachers who are union leaders, I was the secretary on our executive board, even teachers as union leaders, paying those full dues, have no voice if they dare to question or speak out against the union political machine. And I did that. I dared to speak out. So I got bullied. I was silenced. My teacher friends who have spoken out at state and national levels of the National Education Association, California Teachers Association, Ohio Education Association, all different states, all of them who dare to speak out in defense of children and families, in defense of homeschooling, in defense of anything that the unions hate. All of us have been bullied and abused. So I ended up serving as lead plaintiff in a federal lawsuit. 10 California teachers and I stood to put an end to forced unionism. We were all forced to fund these unions for decades, and close to 50 years. So our case was just one thing. It was a First Amendment case, and we said, no one, teachers, other government employees, no one should be forced to fund a union. We shouldn't be coerced or bullied to force these unions against our will. So all we wanted was freedom, and we finally won it. In June 2018, every public sector employee in America, including teachers, was freed from forced unionism. We're still stuck with their monopoly bargaining. They have monopoly control over us, but we don't have to pay them anymore.
That is fantastic. Since the whole theme is education, freedom to choose, that's what it's all about. It wasn't about, okay, I completely disagree with the unions and a lot of the things that they do, but the bottom line was it wasn't about getting rid of the unions. The unions want to be out there, that's fine. It was about whether or not teachers want to support them financially, and that is freedom. And they talk about freedom all the time, but it's really what they're doing is limiting freedom when they don't agree with what you have to say. And what I have realized myself is that the unions are an agenda-driven machine, and I, as a parent, I don't like the agenda that they're pushing. Mm-hmm. And I, as a parent, don't know how to fight against that. And I think one of the main things which excites me so much about your fight and what you've done and the wind, standing up against a Goliath, and Goliath tumbled. Yes, they still are out there, and yes, they're still doing major damage. But now we as parents can let the teachers know that are teaching our children, you do have a choice, and let's work together. One of the things that has concerned me is that parents have started to look at teachers as the enemy, because it's everything that they disagree with is coming from that teacher. It's that first face, that first interaction of oppression and everything going against them.
Yes.
So somehow I'd like to see how we as parents and teachers, and some of those teachers are doing it on purpose. Let's be honest. But I do not believe that majority of them are. I believe the majority of them are either deceived or doing things that they don't want to do. So how do we fix that, bridge that gap?
I am so glad you asked about this. And you said 100 things that I wish I could, respond to. First of all, the unions are hypocrites. Hypocrites with a capital H. People need to understand this. The unions use the word union because that's a positive word. People see union as a positive thing. They're not unions anymore. And I'm not talking about, if you're a construction worker, I'm not talking about your private sector union out there. I'm talking about government unions. They're not unions anymore. They use the word union, but they are political action committees for a far left socialist agenda that is trying to bring down this free country. You see it everywhere you go. Teachers don't know this. A lot of cops don't know this. Firefighters don't know this. DMV workers don't know this. Every single government agency that's having a problem, take a look. They're led by unions. We've had all kinds of problems with the CDC. They're led by unions. So these unions aren't what they say they are, and they're hypocrites. So that's the first thing people need to know. Second thing, we've started something called Adopt a Teacher. And we adopt a parent, adopt a superintendent, and adopt everyone you know who cares about kids. But our little campaign's called Adopt a Teacher. The unions have used this tried and true method called divide and conquer. They came into our schools, they forced themselves in. I have stories in my book of teachers who didn't want the union, and so they sent 5 men in black suits to harass sweet teachers after school when they were in the classroom alone and forced them into these unions. They were forced onto us. Then the unions created all these lies. You're going to get sued without us. You need our liability insurance. Oh, everybody hates you. Oh, nobody's going to give you a raise. And then they made sure that those things happened to some teachers to scare everybody. Divide and conquer. They told teachers that the administration is the bad guys, that the parents are the bad guys, that the parents are abusers. Then they make parents think that the teachers are the bad guys. They've got all these Red for Ed teacher strikes. Next time you see one of those teacher strikes, you'll note, I hope, there's a few angry activists in the front and the rest of the teachers are terrified in the back. They're doing it to keep their jobs. So divide and conquer is what they've done. What do we need to do? Come back together. Adopt a teacher. So the reason I wrote that book is to educate teachers and parents on what's really going on and bring us back together. So you're going to notice when you go approach a teacher, they're going to feel a little prickly at first because they've been indoctrinated. They've been told they need this union. That's why it's important. Read the book first. Get the proper feel when you approach a teacher. Most of them, the majority of them, I'd say 85% are loving, are caring, are working hard, but they've been lied to, and they don't realize that the people lying to them are our oppressors. So we have to do it softly. Start with teachers you know personally, teachers in your place of worship, teachers in your family. Start with those you love. We ask you to do 6 things. They all start with an E, the 6 E's. Embrace, educate. So you hand them the book, you start talking to them, you take them out to dinner, whatever it takes to educate with them. Once they realize what's going on and they're enlightened, empathize. I'm so sorry you just found out you've been funding the demise of your own profession, the demise of your students, the demise of our educational system, and the demise of our country. I'm so sorry that you've become aware of that. Empathize. But now, stand with them and empower them. Empower them to get out of these unions. They have the right. And if they stand together, they can actually decertify the unions and get them out of their schools, which really needs to happen at this point. They're so out of control. They're bringing radical sex ed, radical anti-discipline policies, turning our schools into war zones. They don't belong there anymore. We really do at this point, in most cases, need to get those unions out. And we can help teachers do that.
I've had a lot of people who've reached out to me, and it started about 10 years ago. I can't remember what pastor it was. There was a pastor from a church, and he said, what we need is a mass exodus from public schools. And I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea, but there are a couple of things that I think parents and teachers need to understand. One, they're not public schools, they're government schools.
Yep.
And they need to understand that what public means is that they are funded with public funds, which means individual families in the community. And there's become this great divide between the school and the families. And I've literally talked to parents who are almost terrified. They've been so conditioned to believe that there's like this invisible iron gate in front of the school, and you have the privilege of allowing your children to walk in at the beginning of the day, and then you are required to collect them at the end of the day. But whatever happens inside there, you're not allowed to have anything to do with it. But on the flip side of that, I've also talked to teachers, and we cannot underestimate the fear that they have of losing their jobs.
Yes.
Because they are intimidated, they are threatened. And I've seen it in Hollywood, I've seen it in Congress. They'll take you off of committees, they'll take you off positions, they'll literally fire you, they'll put you in the worst jobs ever. And so having the parents and the teachers come together in this powerful force, I am convinced that the answer is not a mass exodus from schools. I am also convinced that this mammoth of a beast of fighting the public education system is not the answer. I believe that you have come upon the answer in a very powerful way. Let's have a mass exodus of the unions. Push them out at the end of a pitchfork and bring parents and children back together so that the school isn't this domain that is dividing us, but bringing us together.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, everything you just said, amen, 100%. And look, that iron curtain is there. It's not invisible. It's there. I got to tell you, parents, if you're in a school like that, pull your kid out. Start homeschooling. Do whatever it takes. Look, I was a single parent for 7 years. I know how hard it is in some situations. I know. Do whatever you can. Find a way. I found a way to put my son in a private school for 4 years while I was a single parent. I never went out to dinner. I didn't have anything extra, but my kid was safe at that point. So we do whatever we can do. But, you know, I have so many things to say, I can't even concentrate. But yes, getting the unions out, but we need to think of something else too. You said our schools are called public schools, but they're really government schools. We need to get back in our history, and we need to understand something. The American founders were very, very deliberate about the way they set up our educational system. They said the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated and moral citizenry. So they set up an education system that was homeschooling, small private schools, many of them religious schools, and small independent schools. And all of our major universities, including Harvard, started out as Christian run. They were training the clergy at Harvard when they started in 1636. That's what they were doing, and teaching Judeo-Christian values. All of our schools that would now be considered public, they weren't public schools, they were American schools. All of them were using the Holy Bible as their first curricula. They were using Judeo-Christian virtues. They weren't teaching religion, they were teaching virtue, character, integrity. They were teaching the fruits of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, goodness, kindness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. What's wrong with that, teachers union? You took that out of our schools, teachers union. So the unions came in with the government, and they literally flipped our education system on its head. They told us, oh no, we need public schools. Oh no, separation of church and state, which isn't even in our Constitution. They lied to us, so they're liars too. And they flipped it all on its head, and they told us, your kids have to be in public schools. No, they don't. So we need to remove unions, and we need to stop having public schools, government-run schools. The other thing I think we need to do is close the National Department of Education, the state departments of education, and the county and local departments of ed. All of them. close them, because the government shouldn't be running our schools. Schools should be run by the education triangle. That's parents, educators, and students standing together, learning in kindness, in love, in integrity, in truth, in excellence, and training our children to grow up to be patriotic, hardworking people with true American virtues, which are Judeo-Christian virtues. And if we did that, we could turn our country around in a nanosecond. We wouldn't have all of these murdering problems and you know, school to prison pipeline problems. The unions created all those problems, and the government created all those problems. We need to remove them. And parents, we need to take control back, and we need to stand with good and loving teachers, boot out the ones that are activists, and do what's right for our kids again.
Okay, now I have to say a big amen. 100%. There's a quote, I can't remember who said it. I'll have to track that down. Brilliant quote. When you send your children to Caesar schools, don't be surprised when they come home Romans. And that's what we've been doing. We've been sending our children to government schools, and then we're shocked when they come home with these crazy radical ideas. And it's gotten so bad, parents don't even realize that they're not just pushing pernicious doctrines on our kids and promoting agendas that are contrary to freedom, to family, to life, to truth, but they are also creating a divide between parents and children. They're actually encouraging children to tell on their parents. They're saying that parents, they're old, they're fuddy-duddies, they just don't, they're not open-minded. And then what you have is the result of that is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I tell people all the time, if we don't do something dramatically different than what we're doing, we are going to have AOCs filling all levels of government. And there will be no America left. And they are starting in the schools, because every dictator in history knows if you want the future, you start with the kids who will be the future. That's what they're doing. And there's a war for our children, and we need to get in the fight.
That's right. And I have got to just respond with, look, if you're out there listening, type in CTA.org. That's California Teachers Association.org. And then go to their search bar, however, and look for the Social Justice Toolkit for Children. You'll get an eyeful. If you can't find it, go to our website, forkidsandcountry.org, and we'll help lead you there. They have this Social Justice Toolkit for children, for students. It is controlled and organized by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Don't know if you know about that group, but that group is naming Christian and Jewish and Catholic and conservative groups as haters. They have a hate map with a bunch of loving groups listed on it as haters. And so this Southern Poverty Law Center, along with ACLU, along with Planned Parenthood, along with the California Teachers Association and the National Education Association, they have this toolkit, and it is pages and pages and pages long, and children can literally click on a link and be taken directly to Southern Poverty Law Center, where they can narc on their parents and narc on their friends and their teachers for being haters. How do you get labeled a hater? Well, if you believe there's two genders, you believe that God made us male and female, you refuse to agree that there's an unlimited number of genders, and you say, hey, as a teacher, you know, in my religious beliefs, I cannot call this child a tree, or I cannot agree that this girl is a boy tomorrow and a girl the next day and a tree the next day and something else the next day. I can't get involved in that. That's against my beliefs. Number one, you'll likely get fired if you don't do it. But number two, that child can report you to the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hater. That's Orwellian, people. That's 1984. That's Big Brother looking over. And it's all pushed by the teachers' unions. Teachers are funding this, and they have no idea. And all over this page, they talk about how we are here, teachers. We're not here to educate. We're here to turn kids into social justice warriors. They have kids out picketing again. Look, the day President Trump took office, his inauguration day, whether you like President Trump or not, as a teacher, it is my job to teach children to respect authority, especially the President of the United States. I've never said one negative word about any president, whether I voted for him or not, to my students. Well, when Trump was inaugurated, The teachers unions told the PTA, by the way, they've corrupted the PTA parents at the state and national levels. The unions have corrupted them by bullying them. They told PTA parents to pull their kids out of school, pull them out of learning, to picket against the President of the United States. And do you know, I saw with my own eyes parents doing it, kindergartners as social justice warriors. I'll say it, that's evil. That's evil. Our schools are for educating. They're not for using children to push a divisive political agenda and to be anti-American and to be anti-patriotic and just to be nasty little kids who are being taught to be nasty. That's what the unions are doing to our schools. So we got to fight against that.
I think that the main things that I hope that parents get from this is you need to know what's going on, because what you don't know can hurt you, and it can hurt your children. And if you were concerned for your children and your families over this virus shutdown that we've had, let me just tell you that the pernicious things that have been going on in these legislative halls, while they have been saying they care about the safety of the American people, are way more dangerous for our children and the future of our country than that virus ever was.
Yes.
And parents need to understand this. But there is good news, and I want parents to understand that too. So here is the good news: you can adopt a teacher, and if you go to For Kids and Country, it will tell you how you can do that. And the best thing you can do is just, form a relationship with your teacher. Know what kind of person has that influence on your child's life. Understand that the teacher in the classroom has the least amount of money on the money that's being put into per student in these classrooms, in these schools. We are so top heavy on administration that any kind of support and help we can give a teacher, especially one that's loving and they're doing the job they went into it because they love children and want to teach. Let's wrap our arms around them and support them. And here is one of the best things that we can do. Tell them there is a choice.
Yes.
Education choice now exists. So not only can you opt out of the teachers' unions, there really are some things that the teachers' unions do that are beneficial to teachers. There are options. Tell us about that, Rebecca.
Yeah, thanks for asking. So the teachers' unions say that they do things that are beneficial to teachers. And they tell teachers, oh, we provide you with this liability insurance and you're going to get sued and we need to protect you. That's the teacher's number one fear, is that they're going to be sued and that they're going to lose everything. They just want to feed their children and pay their mortgage. So teachers need to know that they can go to two different organizations, Christian Educators Association International, CEAI, or Association of American Educators, AAE, and they can get liability insurance. And here's the really great news. The teachers' unions charges teachers, $1,000 to $1,200 a year for dues, and then bullies them. And then they give them $1 million in liability coverage. And if the teacher's harassed, a lot of times the union does nothing for them. I have teacher friends who have been fired in 3 days, great teachers who've been fired. Union did nothing for them because they say, we only defend you if you're sued. If your administrator's harassing you, we don't defend you for that. So, and these teachers think that their union will defend them for that, but they don't. CEAI and AAE do. And those organizations give the teachers double coverage, $2 million per incident, as compared to the union's $1 million, and they charge around $200 a year. Plus, they offer these teachers a network of other teachers who are like-minded, who care about the kids, and a lawyer they can call and ask questions when they get scared and when they're lied to. So yeah, there's a lot of hope for teachers, and we have all that information on our website. We have at forkidsandcountry.org, we have up on our menu bar, there's a menu item that says Teacher Freedoms and Protections. If you send your teachers there or walk them through it, everything they need is there, even direct links to CEAI and AAE, and we'd be happy to introduce them to leaders in those organizations too. There's a lot of hope.
Teacher freedoms. I love that. And that is what this is about. Let's get back to freedom. Totally agree with you, Rebecca. And I just want to thank you so much for being willing to stand up against Goliath, to speak truth, and in such a courageous way. Truth is not something that's real popular these days. So when someone like you stands up for it and then we win, wow. So let's let more teachers know we won. Go out there and take advantage of these benefits. So it is for kidsandcountry.org is the website. And the book, please, please, please get the book, Standing Up to Goliath, and you will have a much better understanding of what the teachers are dealing with, what your kids are faced with in the classroom, and what you can do about it. Rebecca, thank you so much for being on the home front today, and we look forward to having you back in the future.
Thank you. I look forward to it.
Great. Our next guest is another awesome mom. And I just want to say that it was actually Rebecca that introduced me to this amazing woman. Her name is Kelley Williams Bolar. And Kelley is also a great story about the need for freedom in education. So imagine you're a mom and you are living in a school system, a school district where your children, you feel your children are unsafe. You feel they are not getting the best education. And so you're looking at other options and you pursue one of those options. And because you have pursued that option, your father who loves you says, why don't you use my address so that your girls can come to a better school? So you do that. And the next thing you know, you're put in jail for trying to better your children's lives and protect them. This should not happen in America, and this is a story that every mother in America needs to hear. Kelley Williams Bolar, thank you for joining us on the home front today.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm totally honored.
Well, I just want to jump right in and make sure that we get your story out there, because I remember when I was having a conversation, it's even worse than most people know. What you read in the news about what happened is just a fraction of what actually happened. And I remember yesterday, when I was going through and just kind of reading through the old stories again, the way that they set it up, the way that they make it sound like you're this horrible beast because you lied and deceived the system so that and they made it sound like you're this horrible person, horrible monster, because what about all these other children who aren't getting a good education? And I wanted to be able to stand up and say, yeah, what about them? Give them that opportunity too.
Exactly.
So it was ridiculous. So this is good. I just have to warn all of you. You are going to hear this story and you're going to say, this can't be true. Mm-hmm. It is 100% true. And Kelley is not the only one facing it. And if you ever cross the path that she's talking about, you will face it too. It is real, and it is something that we need to address. So Kelley, tell us your story.
Okay, so I'll take you back to 2005, 2006. My kids were in school. They weren't, doing the best, and there was some bullying going on, and, it wasn't a good environment. And the area I lived in was not the best area. I had just gotten a divorce, and I was in school, I was in college, and I was subbing as a paraprofessional, as a teacher assistant in a particular school district. And my father lived about 3 miles away from me, but he was in a suburban area, which was Copley, and I lived in Akron. So he would tell me periodically, bring them out here, let them, I'm here. I can watch them, make sure they're safe, catch the bus or however, and we can just, until you graduate from college, we can just, make this, make it, just make means meet. And so eventually I said, okay. So I took them out there. Their first year, everything was fine, nothing. Their second year, at the beginning of the year, I received a letter, and the first sentence was, we have clear and convincing evidence that you do not live in the district. And I was like, oh, okay. So we went to the courts, went and got something called a grandparent power of attorney. And we got that from the, courts, and we gave it to them. And I guess by that point they were really upset. They were like mad, because it was basically like too late. Too late. So, but the court said, let them stay. That June, I guess they had been, going against it. So that June, I got a letter from the court, from Judge Teodosio, and she just said, just remove the kids, and everything will be fine. I said, okay. So I did. I removed the kids in June. A whole year goes by, 18 months go by, and I received this indictment. And it says Ohio versus Kelley Williams Bolar. And I didn't know what it could have been. I mean, this is like 18 months later. This wasn't like it came up a month or so or 6 months later. This was 18 months later, right before the holidays. I remember it was in November. And so we didn't know what to do. I remember calling my father, and I told him, I got this. It came in a postcard. And I said, I got this card and it says Ohio versus Kelley Williams Bolar. What is that? He didn't know, but he knew more than me. And so he was like, bring it over now. Let me look at it. And the same day he received one as well. So now the process begins. So we go to court. We don't know who it is. We go to court. We're trying to figure it out. And of course, it was the Copley Fairlawn City Schools. And they were, charging me and my father with grand theft, tampering with documents. And it was another.
Wait. I'm sorry. I just have to pause. Grand theft?
Grand theft. It
grand
was
theft.
like, yes, okay. It was, yes. Yes.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And my father, he didn't enroll the girls. Only I did. He never enrolled my girls. It was all, me. I had physically enrolled them, used my father's address. My dad he didn't do anything, but he also got charged as well. So, I want to make sure I get everything. This was a lot. Okay. It was a lot of stuff that had happened during this time. And I did suffer a little bit of post-traumatic stress behind it because, when I never had anything traumatic happen in my life, never been in trouble, never went to jail. So when something really, really traumatic happens to you, you can sometimes, it's different symptoms. You can sometimes, you want to make sure you remember everything. Like right now, I want to make sure I'm very detailed, but sometimes you can, off and on forget little details of things. Plus, it was a little while ago now, too. But so the process began. We go to court. We get a jury, and the process began. And they found me guilty of grand theft, tampering with documents. I went to jail. I went to jail. I was to serve 10 days in jail, but I ended up serving 9 of the 10. And I was on probation for 3 years. I had to go get the mouth swab, fingerprinting. I had to write a letter to the judge saying what I did was wrong. I had to do community service. Had to do
it was 3 years, right? 3 years of community services. That's absurd.
Yeah, yes, and going back and checking in every month with my probation officer, to make sure that I wouldn't like flee or go out the country. I have nowhere to go, and so it was very intense. And the thing of it is that my father, they charged him. They had to drop the charges literally almost when all this process began, because again, my father, he didn't do anything. My father was old. He was elderly. He had every ailment you could think of that a man could have: hypertension, gout, sugar. He had everything. He was very sick. He was going blind. They knew that they could not charge him, so they had to drop the charges. But what happened was they ended up trying to find anything they could. I don't know how much you read about me and my dad or about my father, but if you look at the information, they said, well, we're going to charge you for. My father was getting medicine. He was getting medical because he was sick, and so he was getting medical like SSI, and he should have been getting disability. But he didn't know the two. He didn't know the difference between the two. And he didn't know that at a certain age it goes over to maybe at a certain age it goes over to disability, if I'm correct. And so he was already like a year past that. So they basically said, well, you stole $100,000 worth of medical. So we're going to take you to the penitentiary where he died. My father never came home. Mind you, my father had never been in trouble, ever. He was a good man. And he served his family, and he loved us dearly. And he goes to jail to be beside these rapists, murderers, just all kind of things, So it just frustrates me, and it makes me so mad that the system was so venomous to wanting to prove a point to me and my family and to the world that this is not, acceptable. Yes, okay, I did wrong. Punish me, but don't make us go to the penitentiary or to jail or, my dad to die there because of all of this, because they were so upset because all the people were actually, they were coming to our aid. People were calling and they were getting letters and emails about, you're going to send these, this mother and her and the grandpa to jail, for district jumping. That's what it's called, district jumping. And so, oh my goodness, sorry. Ooh, almost lost it. But yeah, it was very intense. It was a lot going on, and I'm really kind of glad. I love telling my story. I want people to know. I always believe that. Why are we here? Why are we are here to tell our story. We are here to, whatever your story may be, that is one of the things I've always truly believed in, especially when all of this happened, because either you're going to help someone else get out of their situation or inspire someone else or encourage someone else, because people know that they're not alone in the fight. I'm just a mom. I'm just a mom that wanted my kids safe. I wanted them educated. And I just wanted to get through this. I was newly divorced, and my parents were all that I had. And now, I'm not the only person across this country that's like that. There's many, many moms that need support, that, maybe they've always been a single mom, or maybe they've just gotten a divorce or whatever, but they need help. And instead of punishing someone who, I didn't have a degree. I was, basically poor. I was on assistance. I was in college, I was only on assistance for a short period of time, because that's what assistance is for. It's to assist you until you're able to, be on your own. So I was only on it for a short period of time. But what I'm saying is that, when you see a mom struggling to put someone, in jail, or to give them a felony, thank God our governor at that time, John Kasich, he came to my rescue. He just had basic common sense. He was like, there's no way you can go. We can't begin to start putting every mom, single parent, dad, grandpa, grandma in jail for district jumping. We can't do that. So luckily he came to my rescue, and he was like, no, we're going to, and I keep his plaque is right here. It's really, I don't know if you can see it. He sent me this, and I keep it on my wall, and it's my freedom papers to say, no, the governor stood up for me at that time in my life. And he helped me get through this, time. And he took those charges. He brought them down because they were felonies. And how could I have been a productive citizen in society if I had received two or three felonies? Then, what good would I have been? And I explained these things to my daughters when all of this happened. I sat them down. I explained to them, Mommy did tell a story. I told a story because, of course, we all know it's because I wanted you guys to be safe. I wanted you guys to have a good school. I mean, their school system was everything. It was so good. Let me tell you real quick. I don't know how much time we have. So I go to the school, and this is the day I get ready to enroll them. And the elementary principal, he comes out, and he was like, let me show you around. I'm like, okay. This man shows me around. They got a greenhouse. They got acres of land. They got all the resources. They got this computer IT room that's fabulous. She's at that time was only in the 3rd, 4th grade. She would have the resources that she had there versus the resources that was at the school that she had attended were miles, millions. It was so far apart from each other. It was ridiculous. So just to see those kind of things, it just makes you say, wow, why is it that they have all this? And why is it that, all our kids should have the equality of equal access and equal quality of education across the board? My kids in the inner city schools were using 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th editions. So, yeah.
So, boy, you have brought up so much, and I'm just going to get raw here, okay? Because this story infuriates me. And there were a lot of things that I was reading in the last couple of days as I was going back. Okay, so here's one, okay? One of the articles said that the reason why this was such a horrible offense and made you out to be some kind of villainous criminal was because you were stealing from the community. Because the taxes that go to support that school need to come from the people who live in the community. And I'm like, wait a minute. Her dad lived in the community. He was paying taxes to that school, and his grandkids.
But they didn't hear that.
No.
But they didn't hear that.
No. Okay, so then there was another one that said, well, the reason why they were, basically throwing the book at you was because they wanted to set a precedent. They wanted to set you up as a deterrent. They wanted to dissuade other mothers, and it was almost like, I can't remember this quote, and it wasn't exactly, but it was literally like they were saying, well, we have to prove, we have to set her up as this is wrong, or else other mothers might get the idea that they can do this for their kids too. And I'm like, right, so let's do that. Okay, then the other thing that came up, and this really ticks me off, 3 miles. I could not get those 2 words out of my mind. 3 miles. You went to that one school and you saw everything that you had to offer. And yet the government officials were telling you that you had to stay in this little box over here because that's where you lived and that's all you're good for. That ticks me off. And it is happening in inner cities and minority communities all over the country. And then that brought me back to the whole dissuade thing again. We can't have other mothers being empowered to know that they can fight for their kids. No, that's exactly what we need to do. And your story is one of the most empowering stories that I've ever heard. And it was your words when you were walking out of court, when you said, I did this for my kids. That's just it. I did it for my kids. Every mother has a right to do that. The property values in this country. Let's think about what this district thing means. The property values in this country are based on the value of the school. And nobody really talks about that. But anytime somebody's looking for a home, one of the first things they'll ask the realtor is, are they good schools? Do you know that the realtor is by law not allowed to answer that question?
Oh, no, I didn't
They
know
are
that.
legally not allowed to answer that question. But they can they can say, well, you can go here and get information. They'll have the scorecards for the state and tell you, what school has good marks or whatever. But all of the property values in the United States are based on school districts. If people think it's a good school, then people are going to want to move in there, and the property values are going to increase. The homes are going to be, they're going to better their homes, better their communities. If the schools are not, then the property values are going to plummet. People who are looking for a better life for their kids and their family are going to move. And then what do you get left with? You get left with the worst teachers, the worst curriculum, the worst schools, the worst administrators, because who wants to be there? That is a huge tragedy. And that is something that I wish that more courageous government officials would stand up and talk about. I want to echo the words of Rebecca Fredericks, who we just had on. We need to get rid of the Department of Education at all levels, federal, state, and we need to go back to common schools where parents can choose for themselves what is the best school opportunity for their kids. And it's just as simple as when we lived in Virginia, we had 4 different high schools. And there were kids who were really into soccer, and one of the schools had a really incredible soccer program. And they just wanted to go to that school. And they were told they couldn't because of where they lived. That's ridiculous. Right. You should be able to pursue the best opportunities for your children. You have just empowered a whole entire nation of moms to do that. So what those government officials and union officials and everybody else that came after you did was exactly the opposite of their intent. They did not dissuade because you, as a mom, had the courage to stand up when the world was caving around you. And you lost your father because of it. Your life was turned upside down because of it. What do you want to tell moms across this country who are in those kind of situations, and moms who are hearing you who maybe can do something? Because this is affecting us all. It doesn't matter if we're in the exact same situation that you are. we could be you, regardless of where our kids are going to school. What would you say to moms?
I want moms to know that you have rights. I didn't know I had any rights. I just was going along because I was ignorant. I didn't understand. So just knowing that you have rights, and it's a disservice to us as parents to not know this information. We are just going along in life and thinking, okay, I'm going to enroll my child here. This is where they're going to go. And we just have to put up. No, we have rights. We have, oh my goodness. Can you see me?
We see your beautiful picture on your phone.
I'm not sure. Okay.
There you are. There, you're back. You're back.
Sorry. Okay, so just wanting parents to know, moms to know, we have rights as parents. I can't say that enough. To get involved, to make sure you are on top of things at your school. Get involved with these teachers, administrators. Make sure your child is getting the services that he or she needs. We got to be involved, and it doesn't just stop. Like when you get to high school, it doesn't say, "Oh, yeah, I can sit back." No. Stay. Now it's even more to get involved. More, you have to just get engaged even when they get to high school. Don't stop. And just I believe that if we continue to stay empowered with one another, this eventually, we don't know how long it's going to take for this to go across the board where all our children will be equally educated, or at least very close, bridging that gap, that hopefully we can have a better life for our children than we did have for ourselves even.
I love what you said about equal access. This is where equality really comes in. Equal access and equal opportunity in the education system should abound. And what's happening is we are being limited. And whoever they are out there deciding what a school district is going to be, and whether or not you're allowed to quote district top, that's a dumb phrase. It should just be about equal access, equal opportunity. It shouldn't be about you get better opportunities because you live in this area. And it truly does absolutely infuriate me. But there's some good news, and lots of good news in this story too. So you did graduate from college, and
Yes.
you are now in the school system. What are you doing in your professional career now, working with these kids and in the school system, to make a difference where you are, based on what you've learned and what you've been through?
Okay. First of all, I just love being able to be in a classroom, be engaged, and talk to the students. I do work with behavior students, but that doesn't mean that they can't learn. They learn just as well as anyone else. So I just have a joy of being able to influence them and talk to them, and especially the students who come in that's maybe have I don't want to say a chip on their shoulder, but they're upset every day, or they're having issues, emotional issues, mental issues. And I love being able to actually tell them my story. So that breaks down boundaries. So then they like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm just a mom like everybody else, and I work here. But a lot of times kids think that they think that you live, sleep, and eat at the school. No, I live. I go to the grocery store. I ride a bike. I do that. And it's so funny because kids, they look at you like, oh, you're regular. Yeah, I'm regular like everyone else. And so I like to be able to tell my story to certain students that maybe are really having a hard time in life. And then they'll go home, and then they'll look it up, and then they'll see me going to jail, and they see the whole, situation, or maybe they'll ask their mom, and then their mom will say, yes, I remember that story. So that right there is very impactful for me. It makes me feel good because that's direct. I'm directly dealing with the students. And then of course, being able to be engaged and talking to administrators, or, when we're doing our in-service, or when we're talking about what's going on in our community for our kids, So I just love being involved. That means a lot to me. And I just want to make a point. Many of the people that were writing, was only one particular person that would write something horrible about me. The reason why this individual would write so horrible, because he lived in the community. He lived in Copley. But he worked for Akron Beacon Journal, and his name was Bob Dyer. I don't care. I'll tell you the name. And he would say anything that he could to defend his community, because every time if they noticed that I did something on NPR, or if I did anything on a level of national news, then they would call him. And then he would write up an article and he would just say, she's doing this and she's doing that and she's such a beast. And I'm like, I'm just telling my story as I should. Who doesn't tell? They wanted to shut me down so badly. And it's like, how do you shut down something? So this should never have happened. And I hope to God that it would never happen to another parent out here, that all they want is their kids. I didn't go rob a bank. I didn't hurt anyone else. My dad didn't hurt anybody else. All we did was, we were a close-knit family. All we did was love each other and protect one another. And if that was wrong, then I don't care, because I'm always going to tell my story, and I'm always want people to know what happened. Yes, I also explain to people, yes, I lied. I'm not saying I didn't lie. I made a mistake, but does that fit the crime? Does the punishment fit the crime? So that I kind of spewed off there for a second. I'm sorry.
No, I love what you're saying. Your story needs to be told, and one of the main reasons why your story needs to be told, and why they tried to shut you down and silence you, is because they know the power of the story. Because the truth of this is, they know it's wrong. They know it's not just. And what you are able to do with those kids in the classroom, what you were able to do on national news, what you're able to do in the environment and in your sphere of influence right now, is show people injustice and winning, because justice wins. And I have to say that I have had some definite disagreements with Governor Kasich, and have some issues with some of the things that he's done. But I'm like, dude, you got this one. He did it right. Common sense prevailed, and he did the right thing. And you got to give him major props for that. I want to make sure that everybody knows about your book, because it's going to be coming out the end of May. And I love the name, The Mom. I just have to say that after hearing your story and getting to know you, The Mom is the perfect title for you, as well as the book. So the book is called The Mom, and it's Kelley Williams Bolar Story. And it comes out May 30th. And please, you can find it on Amazon. Booksellers, you need to go and get this book. Read this story, hear the full. It's unbelievable what this mom had to go through, and how wrong it was. But now the world knows. And I know you're probably feeling the same way that I did when I went through a situation that was extremely difficult. I kept saying I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. Mm-hmm. But I get on my knees and thank God for the experience, because I am wiser, I am more courageous, and I've become a fighter, because I've seen injustice face close up. And now I'm going to fight for justice. And more families, more moms, more dads need to know you are not alone. We need to unite together, and we need to stop stepping out of the process, and we need to jump back in. Yes. So if you guys want to learn more about Kelley, get her book. Also, Kelley has become our Ohio State Liaison for Moms for America, and we are absolutely thrilled and honored to have her. So if you live in Ohio and you want to get involved and join this mighty movement of moms to reclaim our culture for truth, family, freedom, a modicum of common sense, and put parents and moms' rights back in the forefront, then reach out to Kelley. We've got an Ohio Facebook page. I think it's Moms for America Ohio, or Ohio Moms for America, one of the two. But you can also find it through our website, momsforamerica.us. And again, pitch her book again, because you need it. Get this book, Kelley Williams Bolar, The Mom. And I already pre-ordered mine on Amazon. So.
Okay. And I want to real quick. Oh my God. Yeah. What was I thinking? Of course, you got to give praise to God. So, yes, I'm just so grateful, and I'm so thankful that God was able to pull me through this at the darkest times. Yes. I always have to give praise to God. So I just want to say that real quick, because I don't ever want to do an interview without thanking God. He is everything to me, and he was able to get me through everything. And then I also want to make a real quick point. The subtitle of it, and I don't know if you saw this, it is the mom, and it is the Kelley Williams Bolar story. But there's a subtitle to it, and it's called Justice is Just Like Beauty is in the Eye of the Beholder. But did I explain to you, and I'm going to make this very fast. That phrase came from the prosecutor. When they were getting their jury together, and we started our jury and we started the process, and they were prosecuting me and my father in the courtroom, he looked over at me and my dad, and he said, justice is just like beauty. It's in the eye of the beholder. And my dad looked at me, he said, we are in trouble. We are in trouble, because we had never heard of it phrased that way. So I explained that in my book, why I say that as a subtitle down at the bottom. So that's all. That's it.
No, that is fantastic. Kelley, I can't tell you how excited I am that we connected. I thank Rebecca all the time for that connection.
Me too. I love her.
I'm grateful for your courage. I'm thrilled beyond measure to have you a part of our team. And Ohio has a powerful presence with Kelley Bolar. And I do check her out, get the book, go to Moms for America, Ohio, get connected, and let's take this mighty movement of moms across the country in a powerful way to give moms the rights. Came from God, okay? I love that you brought up God, because our rights, there is no such thing as a constitutional right. Our rights come from God. They are divine and inherent. The Constitution protects them. Therefore, we as mothers need to protect and defend that Constitution, and we need to know what it says. You said it in the middle of your interview. We need to know our rights. I cannot express that enough. Moms, you heard it from Kelley. We need to know our rights. Let's get connected. Let's stay connected, and let's put our country back on track. So visit us at momsforamerica.us. On the Homefront, again, is on hold for a while, but we will be back, and we will be doing lots of cool events coming down the line, and some surprises, too, that we'll be letting you know about. So until then, stay safe, stay healthy, but most importantly, stay free. God.